Hello everyone, I hope you are doing well and having a great Saturday night. In tonight's forecast update, we're going to be talking about severe weather, and we're also going to talk about the tropics just a little bit towards the end of the video. First, starting out with severe weather outlook for tonight on Saturday, July 19th. And so we do have a pretty large slight risk into the central U.S. and midwestern U.S., along with a pretty large marginal risk for tonight. And so if we look at our tornado risk, we do have a 5% tornado risk into Nebraska and Kansas, and a large 2% tornado risk around that. And then around that as well, we have a wind risk to 15% wind risk for tonight. And then we also have a 15% hatched risk and a regular 15% and a 5% hail risk for the central U.S. for tonight on Saturday. For tomorrow, July 20th, 2025 on Sunday, we have two slight risks, one into the Dakotas and then one into portions of the Northeast and New England. And so we also have a large marginal risk around that stretches all the way from both of these slight risk and through the Ohio Valley and Mid-Atlantic into the central U.S. We do not have a tornado risk for tomorrow, but we do have a 15% wind risk along with a large 5% wind risk for tomorrow on Sunday. And then we also have a 15% hail risk in the Dakotas and a 5% hail risk around that, and then one into the Northeast for tomorrow on Sunday. Then finally looking at our day 3 outlook on Monday, July 21st. And so we have two marginal risk, one into the north central U.S. and then one into the southeast and kind of mid-south for Monday. Tonight on Saturday, we just have a few storms, mostly isolated out here into the central U.S. And so most of these storms will start to weaken over the next couple of hours, and really by about 11 or 11 p.m. or 12 a.m. Central Daylight Time, most of these storms should be just about gone, especially from the Dakotas. But further to the south into Iowa, Nebraska, even Kansas, we could see some re-intensification of storms late tonight into tomorrow morning, maybe by around 7, 8, 9 a.m. Central Daylight Time as we get into tomorrow as well. And then we could also see that kind of other batch of storms start to develop as we get into tomorrow evening on Sunday across the north central U.S., along with many of these storms across the Ohio Valley. And those will continue to move eastward, kind of to the southeast a little bit there, but mostly eastward overall. And then as we get into later tomorrow evening, especially by about 10 or 11 p.m. Central Daylight Time, you could see some pretty strong storms here into the Dakotas, and then those will move into Minnesota a little bit there as we get into late Sunday night into early on Monday. And then now if we take a look further into, actually take a broad look here at the eastern U.S. And so going into tonight, you can see all those storms into the Midwest, and then going into tomorrow morning, then finally tomorrow afternoon, plenty of storm coverage across the Ohio Valley and then into the Northeast, of course. And really by about, I'd say 5 or 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, you could see the most storms up here into the Northeast, especially as you get into kind of peak daytime heating with all that instability in the atmosphere. As you can see, quite a bit of instability up here into the Northeast. And so those storms will definitely pose a wind threat for sure as you get later into the evening tomorrow on Sunday. And then finally zooming out here again as we go, we can't quite go all the way fully out with the HRRR model, but if we look at the NAM just briefly for Monday, you can kind of see some more storms into the southeast on Monday and then into the mid-south, and that will once again be another wind risk for those areas. And then further out into the central U.S. and Dakotas, you could probably see another little batch here of storms, maybe even an MCS showing up here on the 3-kilometer NAM, potentially maybe Monday now, but don't lock on to this for sure. We'll have to continue to watch this and see how the models kind of play this scenario out. But the NAM wants to show a MCS in the Dakotas maybe late Monday evening into Monday night, so we'll continue to watch that. So finally looking at the 7-day tropical weather outlook from the National Hurricane Center. And so they have issued an area into the central Atlantic that has a 20% chance of developing within the next 7 days and a 10% chance of developing within the next 48 hours. So this is the newest area we have, really the only area we have in the Atlantic right now that has a chance of developing. But do not worry really too much about this area right now because we're still very far out from seeing what this little area of thunderstorms could develop into. We're so far from seeing where it could go and how it could develop, but we're going to try to get a general idea on the models here in just a minute and see what we could see what the models show and what we could expect over the next couple of days and next really several days at that as well. But do not worry too much about this area right now. But we are going to continue to watch this area and see how it develops. Starting out with the GFS weather model here, and so just keep your eye down here into these areas where the green, yellows, oranges, and reds are, because this is going to be our moisture that we're going to be looking at in the area we could potentially see some development in. But as you can see, there's a low pressure that develops that kind of pops up on your screen by tomorrow. On the GFS specifically, and so there it is, our moisture there. It's pretty hard to see, honestly, because it's just not much, not very organized at all. But it has this area of moisture continuing to move westward, and then it kind of just drifts off into the Lesser and Greater Antilles by maybe later next week, maybe by Thursday, Friday, Saturday potentially. And once again, it does not do much besides bring rain to these areas. Now, if you look at the European weather model, pretty much the same story there. Here's our area just right down here at the bottom of your screen. And once again, gets it into about Monday and then Tuesday, and still is not very impressive at all. You could just barely see it here on your screen. And then if we look at our vorticity here, this is our area right here where you kind of see those darker yellows and oranges on Tuesday and into Wednesday, and once again just is not impressive at all, which is a good thing for sure, because we just really don't want this thing developing into anything significant, which we don't think it will. But still, it is just very unimpressive on these models, so that's a good thing for sure. And so now if we look at the European AI model as well, this has been a pretty good model, and it did decently well with last year's Atlantic hurricane season. And so if we continue this on, here's our moisture down here once again at the bottom of your screen. Gets it further into the Lesser Antilles, then eventually the Greater Antilles, and does not do much with it either. So that is what the models show here, and we'll finally just take a look at we'll actually look at the Canadian and Icon model real quick as well. Here's the Canadian model, same thing here, really does not show much either, a whole lot of nothing. And then finally the Icon model, which did not really do well with our disturbance in the Gulf a few days ago, but we'll just look at it just to see more guidance. And even the Icon does not really develop it into anything significant. There's a 12Z run, and once again does not develop it into anything significant. So with all that is going to close out our model discussion for this little area that could develop. But we'll continue to watch this area, but don't worry too much about it at this time. The models aren't picking up on anything really right now. So like I said, we'll continue to watch this as we get into the middle and latter part of next week. But other than that, that'll be it for tonight's update, and I appreciate all of y'all watching.